Hi, Roxanne. Hi.
We should be good.
All right, it is 6 o'clock, and I will call the meeting to order. Can we rise for pledge? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And then, Tasia, would you take roll call, please?
Yep. Lacey Oster.
Here.
Roxanne Kendall.
Here.
Cherie Ling.
Here.
Bruce Belargin.
Here.
Lori Belargin.
Here.
Matt Foucault.
Here.
Marge Blill.
Here.
Our district mission: together we engage, educate, and empower all learners, bridging their passions to pathways to create successful futures and positively contribute to our local and global communities. I will take a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the
Thank
agenda.
you, Marge. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Lacey. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Open forum. I have two people who would like to participate in the open forum. Mr. Tanner, do you have the call?
Yeah. This is Corey.
Hi, Corey. We have you on speakerphone for the open forum portion of the school board meeting.
Hi there, yep, Corey Miller, 24/7 Western Star Prairie, and wanted to call in and make comment tonight on a couple of things COVID related. I sent an email to the board and to initially Mark and Ryan with a couple of questions or concerns about the safe return to school flyer that came out, and I highlighted a couple of details there, and I didn't really get full responses. I assume it's because they're just really busy and it's only been during this week here. So I'd really appreciate if you guys can discuss that a little bit in tonight's meeting. We'll be listening for that towards the end if there's a little extra time, and get back to us. There are several parents. I'm sure many, if we sent a survey out asking some of these same questions. I'd really like to see more surveys on this type of stuff. We're all really scratching our heads about this, closing of the school and how that decision was made, and just making sure we're really being transparent and things make sense. So in that flyer about the safe return to school, it talked about the recommendation for masks, the recommendation for vaccines, and I just don't like the tone of that. I understand you're just passing along what the public health experts continue to feed you, but there's been, so many really, really good points as to, whether or not we should be just following these recommendations. I thought we had pretty well established back during the recall time that, if the vast majority of the community and the teachers and staff think otherwise and disagree with these recommendations, and the fact that they keep coming really sends a message that we're not really being considerate of what our parents and teachers are thinking. And you're kind of just asking them to, shut up and ignore the experts, as you guys continue to seemingly follow these experts. So to me, that's the biggest point that needs further discussion and clarity. And then the main point on that safe return to school flyer was some odd verbiage that wasn't a very well written sentence, but it said something to the effect of students that test positive may be excluded if they're from homes that are not fully vaccinated.
15 seconds, Corey.
thank you. If you're a kid that is from a home that's fully vaccinated, you may not be or are less likely to be excluded from school or quarantined or whatever for 7 into 14 days. So Ronnie did send me some links through DHS stuff, and it still is not clear to me. So if it really seems like that's discrimination if that's what we're doing. So please clarify that when you guys get a chance.
Thank you,
And,
Corey. It's well over the 3 minutes.
Thank you.
And definitely no COVID clinic at school. I think we're going to hear.
Who's next?
Tasia is next, and she's here in person.
I am. Okay, public speaking is not my thing, so bear with me if I bumble over my words. And this is my last board meeting, so before I get into my topic, I just want to say thank you guys for working with me over the past few years, and I look forward to staying on as a coach, and I'm really happy that I'll get to do that. So thank you for the opportunity to address the board tonight. Did you know the cheer team is one of 2 sports at SHS that does not have a paid assistant coach position? The other is the SHS dance team. When I began coaching here in 2015, there was only a fall sideline team, which had 10 participants. Since then, the high school program has expanded into the winter season to include basketball, wrestling, and competitive cheer. I cannot take sole credit for this growth. It's come from the desires of the team members, support from their families, support of the previous athletic director and school board, and a tremendous amount of time and dedication from volunteer coaches throughout the years. I'm here to advocate for the need for an assistant coach for the winter season. This role has been filled for the past 4 years and is currently in its 5th year being filled by a volunteer. Without a volunteer assistant coach, there's no doubt the cheer team would not be as successful as it is today, including our 2021 state championship win and the tremendous growth of our winter programming. Having an additional coach allows us to provide more individualized skill development and feedback for our student athletes, leading to reduced injuries, enhanced performances at games, and continued success at the state level. We're currently operating with less paid staff than all other SHS sports, even those with fewer participants. This winter, we have 20 athletes participating in cheer, 15 of which are freshmen and sophomores. I want to ensure they're provided the quality coaching they deserve, so it's a safe and positive experience, and they return for future seasons. During the winter season, our team practices in preparation for game performances, the state competition qualifier, and state finals. On average, we practice approximately 8 to 10 hours a week, with 2 games or matches per week. We have multiple squads that cheer at regular season home boys and girls basketball games, boys and girls basketball postseason games, and all home wrestling meets, and preparing for our competition series at the end of the season. As you can imagine, it's sometimes simply not possible to be everywhere at one time with only one coach. When discussing how an assistant coach would help greatly with the athletic director in 2019, the response I received was to do less, meaning cheer at less games or offer fewer squads. Doing less would mean picking and choosing which games would have the support of cheerleaders and which would not. Doing less would mean taking away from opportunities from our student athletes. I'm requesting the addition of the paid assistant coach for the winter be brought forth for consideration by the board. I made this request to the athletic director for the past 3 winter seasons, and I recently shared this with Dr. Bezick as well, and it's my understanding he's discussed this with the business office, but there has not been movement yet.
30 seconds.
I'm not asking for something more than other sports, I'm simply asking for the same. It's been requested or recommended that the stipend could be split between the 2 coaches. Currently, the winter cheer coach stipend is $2,085, which is $2,600 less than other winter sport head coaches and $1,000 less than their assistants. Nobody coaches for the money, however, the suggestion of splitting the stipend, which is already far less than every other coach, is insulting. I'm not naive to the fact that spirit programs are viewed differently than sanctioned sports, but I'd invite you to come to any one of our practices and see what we do. They deserve the resources that they need, including staff, equipment, and facilities. Thank you for the time to listen tonight, and please know this does not come from a place of ill intent, but rather from a tireless advocate for student athletes in my program, who will continue to advocate for equitable resources to ensure their experience is everything that they deserve it to be.
Thank you. All right, so superintendent's report is next.
Mark, can you hear us?
He's muted.
Let's see if I can unmute him.
Thank you.
No, yeah, you're muted. Do you want Ryan to go ahead? Okay.
All right, so I'm just kind of here to do an update regarding COVID in the district right now. So with that, I'll just kind of run over some of the numbers that we've been seeing lately and across this year. So with that, currently, I did our number update this morning at around 7:30. We currently have 9 active cases in the district of students and 3 active staff members. We've had a total of 168 up to this morning. Currently have 37 students excluded per close contact related to household close contacts and students who are symptomatic and were identified. So that's kind of where we're sitting right now. Going by building, we currently, for this total year, have 53 cases at the high school, 51 at the middle school, elementary at 56, and the early childhood and junior kindergarten is at 8. I know this is kind of hard to see, so I kind of gave you guys this handout. Hopefully it's a little easier for you guys to read. It just goes case by case, day by day, so that you guys know what we're seeing daily. So this is just September. I have October next, and then up to this point, November. So we can go ahead, Asia. So this is October, and then obviously November up to yesterday. I haven't accounted for today yet, just because I usually do that the day after, just so we have a full case count. Next page, we have the total cases per week, per building. As you can see, we kind of started off a little slower and started to pick up a little bit over the past 2-3 weeks here. We've kind of hit our kind of high point that we've had so far, with 2 weeks ago having 31 cases, last week, or the week before having 37, and then last week having 19. Currently this week, we, as far as I'm aware, we're at 2. We were notified of a case at the elementary school and 1 at the junior kindergarten level. So currently this week we're at 2 cases. So that's what we're looking at right now. The next piece of information here is kind of what I use to see our transmission levels within the households and within the schools. So I broke it up by the whole district, then by each building. So this is kind of the district level right now. As you can see, total at 168. Of that 168, we've identified 34 individuals within the school, 56 individuals testing positive at home, and then 78 testing through community sources, kind of unidentified or unknown. So that's the district right there overall. As far as close contacts go, I still do a close contact tracing within the schools, but again, we're not excluding anybody unless they develop any symptoms. So looking at that, we've had a total of 1,105 students and staff identified through school, through the household, and through the community. So that's kind of an overall look at the district right now. The next one we can look at is the junior kindergarten, so pretty much this building. As you can see, we've had 8 students test positive between early childhood and junior kindergarten. No staff members up here have tested positive that we are aware of. And so looking at that, when we do close contacts, we kind of just use the whole classroom, seeing as it's hard to kind of individualize which students were around which students at kind of this age level, as they're all kind of running around potential close contacts with multiple students. Looking at the elementary school, we've had a total of 6 staff members test positive, and then 50 students test positive. So we kind of see a bit of a jump from what we were at last year with the elementary school, looking at 21 students within the schools testing positive, 21 within the household, and then 14 positive cases through the community that we weren't able to identify. And then again, looking at the close contacts there, looking at about 451 students who were identified as close contacts, whether through school, through the household, or through the outside community. Looking at the middle school here, we have 8 staff members who have tested positive this year, with 43 students testing positive. Again, the school transmission was relatively low, as of now, with only 6 students and staff testing positive within the school. Within the household, again, 16 right there, and then through the community is kind of where we're seeing that spread through the middle school. And again, those close contacts right there, 295. And then looking at the high school here, we've had 10 staff members test positive there, with 43 students there. Again, transmission at the high school has not been very high. Again, 5 staff or students testing positive within the schools, 15 within the household, and then through community is where we're seeing most of the transmission at the high school. And then with high schoolers and middle schoolers kind of being able to kind of move around, stay isolated within their social circles. Not as many close contacts as we're able to identify them more easily. So that's kind of what we're looking at right there. Any questions on that data as of now? I know it's a lot.
I have a question.
Yep.
So can you just talk quick in regards to the elementary school being closed? Did you see success? Would your rates drop?
Yeah.
You know, we're a week back in, so how did that work?
So looking at the initial first week of November here, we had 19 positive cases during that first week. And that's kind of when we evaluated the shutdown. We had 4 positive staff cases and 15 student cases. And between that, we had 10 school cases total. So 10 cases that we were able to identify within the schools. Prior to that, we had never seen that many cases being identified within the schools. So with that, I met with Mark and I met with Pam, and we just kind of discussed and had a conversation of what kind of the next steps would be, how comfortable we're feeling. We had a meeting with the staff members there, their comfort levels, and so just kind of using those multiple factors, the number of individuals who kind of see multiple people, the interactions that we were seeing there, kind of played a factor into why we made a decision to go distance learning for that week.
You know, no, I get that, but where are we now? So we're a week
Oh,
back
yeah.
into school. Our transmission levels, was it a success? Was it worth closing school or not? In your
I would
opinion?
say yes. Between the week, so that first week, we saw 19. That second week, we had an initial 12. The week after, I believe, let me look real quick, I believe the number of cases went down significantly. Prior to that, we were in the double digits. The week that the students returned, we were back at single digits, which is good to see, just the numbers that have gone down. And then this week, still kind of looking at it, but we're doing, knock on wood, pretty well this week in terms of numbers between the buildings. So I think that shutdown kind of helped reset us a bit, get everything cleaned up. I know we did a deep clean of the schools, just kind of let everybody, again, reset. So I think that was a very helpful step to kind of get to kind of back to level ground.
Okay, thank you.
I've got a couple questions, Ryan. So I've referenced this before, and I wanted to get the exact verbiage from the CDC website. So back on July 21st of this year, they came out and stated that the PCR test is not accurate. And then as of December 31st of this year, they're going to be removing that from its testing process. So is that the test that we are having these kids tell us they're positive? Are they symptomatic? Do they have no symptoms, but we're using a bad test that's saying that they're positive? I guess my biggest piece is, are these kids truly sick, or is it a bad test that's, the CDC has already said doesn't work?
Mm-hmm. So the majority of the cases that we've seen who have been tested were symptomatic and then have tested positive. Very few asymptomatic cases. But as far as testing goes, I mean, these are kind of the only testing options we have at this point. The PCR is the gold standard that we use right now, followed by the antigen testing, which is the rapid testing. There's no really other format that we can go to determine for sure. So at this point in time, we're still just sticking with the PCRs and the antigens that are being provided by testing sites. Until something significantly greater comes out, this is kind of what we have to stick to as far as determining positive cases and what to use for testing. So we're just kind of using the tools that we're given right now, through EHS, through the local health department, kind of the recommendations that they are telling us to use as far as students and staff, and anybody really just getting tested.
So if somebody is close contact, like within a household, and one of the kids in the household has no symptoms, they still would have to be out even if the other family members tested positive regardless of them having any symptoms?
Correct,
We
yep.
would say that
Just
they were
because
sick.
when we look at that transmission level, again, that's where we're seeing most of the spread is within the households. We've seen a lot of it this year where one family member tests positive and then it just kind of ripple effects and domino effects to kind of spread throughout the rest of the family household. And so just for that, we kind of are a little more cautious when it comes to household family members, just because we know it's sometimes hard to isolate away from individuals within a household, kind of hard to stay away from each other. So that's kind of the precautions that we use a little more closely with those household close contacts.
So one of the items, though, you were saying that if the family is vaccinated, then that child would not need to be a close contact isolation?
Correct. Yep, and that's
So it's
just,
legal for us to ask a family if they're vaccinated and/or now people who are vaccinated are testing positive. So how are we determining that that child is actually any more at risk being in a home with or without vaccinated family members?
yeah, so we are seeing individuals who have been vaccinated test positive, so that's correct. But again, we're still just using the guidelines set by the health departments that we use. They're the ones who call me and say, hey, this student is not vaccinated, they will need to be excluded from school. And so with that, I follow their guidelines and the information that they give me. And so we kind of just use that as a reference point for when we kind of look at our cases within the school. And so that's kind of how we kind of go about that in terms of their students are vaccinated, unvaccinated. Going through the county is kind of our point person to go to.
So the county is providing information if the family is vaccinated as well?
Correct.
Oh, that would seem to go against any HIPAA regulations of people's private medical information being
Yeah, and the
shared.
discussion was talked about that early in the year. If we could be able to use that information, we did talk with Trevor about that. And so from what I understand, we are able to use that information. If we need to revisit that with Trevor, we can definitely do so.
Yeah. Wow.
Does anybody else have any questions for Ryan?
Maybe, my question goes more to Mark. Mark, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. I'm all set.
Okay. So I know a lot of the feedback that I'm getting from like emails, parents is just, what's that magic number? What is the number that makes this close down? And I know we've talked about this before, so okay, like, I won't go there. But in the same token, and I just more or less am asking this to clarify for people that do have questions around it. Do you more attribute that closure because I am seeing, there was that huge spike. So was it more the actual number of kids, or was it more going from 1 to 19? Was it more so that increase? Because I just think people are very curious, like, what number did it take for us to actually close? Or does that mean, okay, in 3 weeks, if we have that 19 number again, does that mean we close? And then I think there's also just that piece for community to be aware of just our shortage of staffing and shortage of subs, to know then when we have that number of teachers that are out sick, whether it be COVID or it's flu season, to know that's also a piece where it gets hard to run a building. I just want to be transparent about what made that closure and what could possibly make a closure again in the future, and not just put it all, because I think that there was many areas that contributed to that.
Sure, and I wish I could give you a number, because the number is very situational. And, I go back to when our first outbreak in a couple of classrooms in September. Ryan was able to track that as it was external, things from the house. when we had, I'm trying to remember back, I think it was Wednesday, when we had the outbreak, we were up to about six classrooms that were being sent home because now it was spreading internally. It was like a snowball rolling down the hill. And again, this is very typical of what's happening in other districts. I was just on a district or a CISA Zoom today, and we all rehashed the same thing, because everyone's taking turns shutting down schools or classrooms or what have you. It's just totally situational. It depends how it's spreading and the number that's spreading. As you mentioned, it's also, do we have the staff? And we also got hit with some other thing that was causing people to get sick or testing negative. And then, that wiped out a bunch of our support staff for a while. So to sit here and say that 3 cases in 3rd grade, we shut the classroom down, it depends. And I wish I had a number for you. If I could have predicted this pandemic and the effect it's having, long-term effects, we'd have a 3-lane road going through our district here because of all the people driving, dropping off kids that we didn't anticipate because it was an offshoot of the pandemic and people were home. So again, there is anyone who builds a rubric around this or a plan has had to change it almost every week because there's something outside that changes on this. So I don't have a good answer for you, just that we take every situation on its own merits. And believe me, we want to keep the kids in school, but there's a balancing act here also of doing what's best for the most. And again, I have no question that the move to shut down the schools for a week was a good decision. No one can convince me otherwise, but that's just my opinion. And again, if you want to spread the decision out to a larger group like the board, that's fine. But we're doing the best we can with the information we have at the time. And Ryan's doing a fantastic job on this.
Hey, Mark, I appreciate your comment, and I think I would just challenge the district. We need to be more transparent when it comes to that information, because what went out to parents and community members was that this was a COVID number spike, and what I'm hearing, and I think in our conversations, it really wasn't. This is a much bigger picture, correct? And I want to make sure that we are transparent, or as transparent as we possibly can be, so that people understand that this isn't just COVID numbers. This is lack of staff and other general sickness with negative tests.
Definitely, it's a combination of cause and effect with us, and our numbers, sometimes they'll coincide with what's happening in the county or the region. I think we've been very fortunate where our numbers, with this last exception, have been, quite low.
Ryan, I have one more question, sorry.
Yeah.
So do you notice that attendance is do you notice more parents calling in, more kids staying home, with greater precautions? I know as a parent, for instance, this year, you get a running nose, okay, we're just gonna stay home and be safe. Do you notice more of that this year, or probably than last year, than in the past?
I would
Are
say
attendance
yes.
numbers?
I don't necessarily get all the attendance of students who are staying home sick or are called in sick, but just from the overall consensus of what I've been hearing, yes, I feel like more families are keeping their kids home sick or sick. So I'm sure you guys
For
will
sure,
hear.
yeah.
Okay,
Yep. And they're understanding when we say you need to come pick up,
okay.
right? So,
I appreciate all these numbers. Thank you.
There's a couple of additional pieces here. There's been some comments about vaccination sites, and there's a lot of talk in our superintendent groups, and we're not entertaining doing that in Somerset. However, Ryan, I don't know if you want to comment. We were doing some digging on testing, having testing available in the schools. But
Yep, that was the next piece I was going to talk about in my presentation here.
Oh, okay.
So I met with the admin team, and they kind of nodded the idea of possibly having on-site testing here at the schools. And so through that, Wisconsin Department of Health Services does run programs for schools in Wisconsin to fund on-site testings for school districts. And so we kind of are playing with the possibility of having that here. And so we filled out a survey to see what would best meet the needs of our school as far as how we would like to go about testing. And so with that, we filled out the survey and they responded to us with a vendor who would potentially come to our school district and run on-site testing. In the next slide. So COVID Clinic was our vendor that we were paired up with when we filled out that survey. Again, it would provide free testing to students, staff, and immediate family members. This is a fully funded program through Wisconsin Department of Health Services, so it's at no cost to us other than for us to provide them a location on campus to do the testing. So again, the three tests, or the tests that are offered are that rapid antigen testing and that PCR testing. So after having a discussion, we would be able to determine whether we want either one of them or both of them available for our site here. And again, they would bring a team in here. They would do the hiring process on their end. Again, we just have to provide a space for them. So nothing comes out of our cost. Everything is run through them and through health services. Again, set up shop on campus, and then we would just have to set kind of the hours that we would want them to run within the school district here. And then in order to get tested, everyone who plans on getting tested would have to fill out a consent form. Again, these aren't required, but, or the consent forms are required, but the testing is not required. It's just another option for students and staff and family members to have another testing site. I know that testing sites these days are running pretty rampant, and it's hard to kind of get in to get tested. So this would just be another opportunity for any individuals who did want to get their family members tested or staff tested. This would just be a location for us here. Again, this would be different from a community testing site because it would just be strictly for school district individuals. It wouldn't be open to the public, so let's say Uncle Bob wants to get tested, he wouldn't be able to. It'd be strictly just for students and staff and immediate family members here. And so for that, there's something called the COVID Connect where families can go and sign up to get tested. Again, they'll give you a QR code when you sign up to get tested. And then you just bring that to wherever the vendor is on campus here. They would scan that and you would be able to get tested. And then in order for that student to get tested, we would just kind of escort them to the testing site, depending on where it is. That way they're not walking there by themselves if they're going from one building to another. And then all the results would either go to me, and then positive test results would go to the families, to the state, to the local health departments, and then to me. Negative test results would just go to the family and to the school nurse. Again, still kind of looking at the logistics of all that, what information we'll actually be getting. And so I gave you guys kind of like the consent forms, if you guys look through your little packet there, of what everything would look like, kind of a rundown of everything there. So you guys can take a peek at that, and if you guys do have any questions, feel free to let me know. But kind of the time frame, if we did end up deciding to do this and hosting it on campus here, by the time we said yes, we want to do it, it would take about 3 weeks for them to kind of get set up before they could start implementing anything. And then again, we would just kind of reconnect with COVID Clinic just to kind of get everything kind of planned out, logistics, information sent out to families and parents, how everything would run. That way everybody's kind of informed of what it would look like to have on-site testing here at the school.
Do other schools in our conference or area have this same program?
I heard that New Richmond had applied for this too. I'm not sure if they're actually going through COVID Clinic, as it kind of varies from school district how they want to run COVID testing, but I've reached out to them. I know Spring Valley has been doing it since the beginning of the year, but I reached out to them last week. Haven't really heard anything back on how that's going for them at their school district, but those are the kind of two that I know of as of now. Not very many others are kind of doing this, so it's kind of still kind of new to us.
Have you gotten feedback from the community that this is something that parents would like to see in the schools?
Yeah, so that's kind of like the next step. Again, we kind of just brought up the notion of potentially bringing it up. We'll have to make further conversations on how we'd want this to run. If we want this to run, what would be the best for our staff, for our students, our families. So again, we're not gonna make any decisions tomorrow. So just kind of a idea that we're kind of tossing up in the air right now.
And then to be perfectly clear, all testing begins with consent from parents.
Correct, yep.
So this potentially is a big help to some parents and maybe not wanted by other parents, but it's just a matter of choice and filling out that consent form.
Correct, yep. So I couldn't just bring Jimmy because he's showing symptoms and say, hey, you have to get tested right now. I don't have a consent form. I couldn't do that unless I got that consent form, so.
Is there a way? Go ahead, Matt.
Roxanne, your comment there, anything like this that we do would be, not that we're pushing anything, it would be if it's seen as a convenience for the community.
Yep, absolutely, Mark. I understood that. I was just reiterating to be clear for anybody listening that, and that's what it says right here, and I imagine parents would get this, but I just wanted to say that for anybody that's listening.
Yep.
Yeah, and just one other point, Roxanne, when you asked about districts, typically Hudson and New Richmond have been on the front edge of anything with vaccinations and what have you, and I'm sure a lot of that has to do with their size also.
So I guess I would be interested to find out if this is actually a resource needed, because really you can throw a stone in 5 directions, and we've got 5 hospitals or clinics within 2 miles to 17 miles max, right from our front door here. So it would seem a little odd if it's a hardship for parents to get to one of those 5 locations to get testing done, that we would, our foundation is we are educators, right? And it seems like we're kind of getting into some weeds with offering COVID testing on site. That seems something that should stay at a clinic level or a hospital level, not at a school level. If we lived in Spring Valley or something, there's no hospital, I think they might have a little clinic there that might be a little bit more feasible or necessary for them, but it would just seem like we have so many resources right here. And then I guess my other question too is, we're saying that parental consent is needed. How is parental consent confirmed though? I mean, how do we know that the parent actually filled that out? And
Right.
not the kid?
Mm-hmm.
That would be a concern as well, could
So
a
another
16-year-old or
kind of something to talk about,
17-year-old know how to navigate that?
Mhm.
How to fill out the paperwork, and, it's not a vaccine, but it is still an invasive measure that the parents may not agree to.
Mm-hmm.
Spitting in the tube.
Is it spitting or is it the nose swab?
It would be the nose swab.
Well, just so you're clear too, the clinics around here are overwhelmed. In Hudson, we do a couple hundred of these tests a day. So if they could get something done at school and the parents want it done, that would be wonderful to have that. And it's free. It's not a cost to us.
Yeah, and I did try to get a test when I was a close contact, and I couldn't get a test. I ended up having to go to Brooklyn Park to get a test. So luckily I worked that way. I could go back, get it. But yeah, I couldn't get one. I think, so I know there's a lot in this area, but I mean, just having it, and like Roxanne clarified, it's not, and Ryan already said it, if you're sick, we don't tell you you have to get this. It's just, if I want to get my kid tested or me tested, I can just drive to the school now
Yep.
and get it instead of going to anywhere else.
I think it would be a huge convenience for our families.
I mean, I think it's worth looking at. Again, like you say, you're not making a decision on it, but I think it's worth looking at. But again, being very clear and transparent with everybody is not forcing anybody to do anything.
Correct.
It's just a resource for people here.
Comment?
Yes.
Yep, real quick, so I'm in agreement with Cherie. I think we're getting in the weeds, and I oppose any on-site testing. So if it comes to the point where we make a decision at the board level, I would hope that we make a decision on the record to where we are if we allow this, but as of today, I oppose this.
Is this something to look at a survey? I think I think what Roxanne said, I think there's some parents that would be like, this is great, I don't wanna wait for 3 hours at Hudson for a test because they're overwhelmed. And I think there's other families who would totally take this, like Sheree said, this makes me feel uncomfortable. And I just look at when you're saying there needs to be space, I mean, I love that it's free, but there still needs, there's a setup and they're taking people to work it. I mean, if there's such a low number that are interested in the community, I'd hate to go through even the hassle too. But if there is an overwhelming amount, we keep saying we're gonna listen to our community and listen to our families. It seems like maybe something that could go out in a survey.
My other concern would be too, let's say it's set up in the district office and these kids are being tested because they have symptoms. How many people do they have to walk past to get to wherever the room is that we're gonna be testing, and how many people could they be exposing on the way, as opposed to going to a clinic where they're designed to be able to do that? I would just hate to have our staff be exposed to it unnecessarily if these kids are only getting tested because they have symptoms.
Well, and a clinic requires masks, we don't.
Yes.
So what do you need next, Ryan?
Yeah, so just kind of the feedback from you guys. Again, we'll have to discuss. We're not making decisions, like I said. So just kind of bringing it up to your guys' attention, taking your guys' feedback, discussing with the admin team, kind of next steps if we need to fill out the survey and send that out, just to get a response from the community would be great. And so again, I don't see it happening within the next week or anything like that, so we've still got some time. There's no deadline for this to kind of need to be pushed through. And so it's just kind of a process before we make a decision, pretty much.
Maybe that is a good thing, to send it out as a survey. It's pretty easy, if you send out this information with it, and maybe if you come up with a map of where this would happen or something, what building you think, and then you can send it out, we can get feedback, and then, we'll be informed to say, yeah, it's a 50-50 or it's a 80-20, let's not do this, and then we can kind of listen.
Yeah, definitely.
This is my take too on it.
Any other questions for me? All right. Well, I think that's my little spiel.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you for coming tonight and sharing this information with us.
Thanks for working with
Thanks,
Public
Fran.
Health and DHS too.
Mark, would you like to talk with us about long-range planning?
Yeah, so I don't have my agenda pulled up here, so I just have some notes here. So just what I mentioned in the weekend update, I've had a couple meetings with Wold and with Market Johnson, kind of revisiting, a lot of the work we did on these facility upgrades, that we didn't, the half we didn't run last time has already been done. So they're putting together all the information that we've had in the past. My part of this is I'm working on assembling a committee to about 20-25 people to start conversations, to get this out here. So we can come back to the board and say, here's what we're looking at. Here's the possibilities. And I believe this next year, you could run a referendum in April and in, I think this year you can run it twice, once in April and once in November. April will be a little tight on the timeline. You can only ask 2 questions in a year. So if if it came down to 2 questions in April, you're done. But if it was 1 in April, you could run it again in November in the general election. Again, we're just at the infancy of this, but the work we're putting together right now, there's not going to be any cost for Market Johnson or Wool, because a lot of this information is already there. We get the planning boards out and just revisit the pieces that we left off in the past. So that's kind of where that is. I did have a piece on there about the WASB or the Joint Convention. So sometime soon we're going to need, who's going to go to that. We did reserve rooms, just, we can cancel them if need be, but start thinking about that. I think by the middle of December, we should kind of have an idea on who's gonna go down to that conference. So, but if you do know already, contact my office, with that. And make sure you send the emails to me here in the short term, because Alicia, our new secretary, our assistant will not be starting until, I believe it's December 6th. I think she'll probably spend a little time before that, but I think officially it's gonna be December 6th, because Pam has to backfill that position over at the elementary school. So just make sure anything you send over, you send it into my email also. Yeah, I think that's all I have on those two topics there. Look at enrollment down there. We're down 2 from last month. Again, it usually varies a few. From last year, we're down 13 from this time last year. Just on the overall numbers.
Mark, can you speak, why are we down 2? What happened? Why did we lose 2 students in a month?
Well, it could have been the expulsion too. Typically, in a typical year, you start out with a high number and you lose kids over the years, over the course of the year. And again, your elementary and middle school usually stay pretty consistent. It's at the high school where you see a lot of fluctuation. So to see it fluctuate, there's just so many reasons why. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Did anybody else have any questions for Mark regarding his report or the financial report or the enrollment report?
Excuse me, Bruce, did you get your question answered on the financial question you sent to Dave and I?
No, I didn't hear from Dave today.
Okay, I know Dave's out of town also, and that, but he, as he and I talked quite a bit today, this is an ongoing budget conversation that, just keeps continually to evolve and develop, with this ESSER money and these dollars coming in. And I think the gist of your question is the ESSER money going in general fund and being used with the budget? The answer is yes. We don't know what our targets will be towards the end of next year as far as we're looking at, deficit or what have you. Again, but that's where we have to have constant conversations and adjust, as we can with the information we have.
Yeah, I guess it was kind of rolling into the next one, Mark, the staffing concerns. Kind of the overall picture of, we're getting that 700,000 or whatever it is, dollars this year. And then what does that look like next year when we don't receive that money or receive a partial or whatever it is? I guess I didn't know if Dave had an update on what it looked like now next year as we start talking about different staffing and other items.
Just with the numbers we have right now, again, we were talking today, if you took a snapshot of what's happening today, I think you mentioned that we could have up to $400,000 deficit the following year, depending on how the ESSER dollars come in. So this thing changes all the time. And so from the very beginning of this whole pandemic and all the ESSER dollars and no funding from the state and what have you, I think I've made this comment several times that we got to be careful because there's gonna be a time here when that faucet's gonna be shut off, and we're gonna have to take a look at some serious financial situations. Luckily, we've got a good fund balance, and you can withstand some losses in that. But in the long term, we've got to be careful.
Well, would you like to go into staffing concerns then?
Sure, I'd love to talk about that. This was, I think, Sharia, did you want to kick this one off?
No, I think it was Roxanne that emailed me anyway.
Well, I had emailed thank you, Lori. I just emailed wondering if we could talk, we had at one time talked about revisiting, okay, backing up. Last year we had 3 full-time subs, This year, we reduced it to 1. In one of our meetings, we discussed revisiting, bringing back those other 2 full-time subs, which I don't know is even a possibility with lack of interest for these positions, but I wanted to have a public discussion about that. And then the other thing was, at one time, we talked about an assistant principal position in the high school, and then reconfiguring that position with the athletic director duties, and I thought it was time we have that discussion again. And then, Sharika, you had some input as well.
Yeah, so we had our enrollment numbers by grade level, and one of the things that I was looking at, because what I'm hearing not only from Somerset, but so many districts around, KSDP put something out recently as well about, just schools in general are so short-staffed. If teachers are out sick or need to be home with their sick children, or substitutes are hard to find, and it's putting so much additional stress on every other aspect within the school to cover those. So just in looking at our enrollment, I'm wondering about the possibility of shuffling. We've got 5 classes in the 1st and 3rd grade, all with fairly lowish numbers, 19, I think in both at this point, or 19 and 18. What would the possibility be of maybe combining, taking one of those, the 5th classroom, spreading them into, 4 classrooms, so that the class number would go, 1st grade, it's currently at 18, 3rd grade, it's at 19. So we would increase those class sizes, 4 kids, 5 kids, whatever that might be, and then taking 2 of those teachers because we've got good staff. Can we utilize the good staff we have in another way to help alleviate some of this stress and have those permanent sub positions covered without adding into our budget?
So several months ago, I brought this concept up to principals at admin. Because first of all, I'm always looking at the numbers of these things and budget-wise, and if we're looking at the beginning of the year now if we put these in for the second half of the year, it's going to be half what I'm going to say here, but if you looked at the beginning of the year and you're going to bring in 2 more subs, there's $100,000 easy. If you're going to expand the high school principal and AD, there's another $100,000. To me, the suggestion was, we take these low number classes, we go from 5 sections to 4 sections, you have 2 highly qualified subs, and you're not looking at this as just for this year until we see where we're going. But then you've got 2 highly qualified subs, but then you haven't impacted the budget at all. And as far as we look at the high school and the AD and AP, I'm just going to say personally, I'm not there yet with that. I look at districts our size. One of the things that complicates the usage of time in the high school, I've been very frank about this too, is the type of schedule we run there is time consuming for administration. There's a lot of tails of that. We'll talk about that later. But talking to all the MBC schools and CISA schools, there's a balance between how busy their people are, what duties they're doing, and what they have for numbers. But again, myself personally, I'd like to leave that assistant principal and AD thing off the table for right now, because I don't think our numbers warrant it. You look at our district overall, our numbers are not going up. And it's bad fiscal policy to keep adding bodies when your numbers are going down. Those lines don't lead anywhere good in the end. I hate to be lecturing Finance 101, but you got to think about that. The flip side of going from 5 to 4 sections is you're going to have a lot of unhappy people at the elementary school. You just will. Change is not easy. My suggestion, if you're going to do that, you do it at a semester break time where you facilitate it. But again, that suggestion was made a couple months ago and it wasn't very popular. But if you want to go down that path, we will implement it.
Wonder what Pam's take on that would be to weigh it out with the rest of. I know at the beginning of the year, I as a board, we were against that, even I think a month and a half ago, when we talked about taking a 3rd grade and putting it into 5th grade, because we didn't want to make that switch and increase those numbers. I think I don't remember perfect, but I think that's kind of the route we were taking. But maybe we're at a different point now. I don't know if it's something worth discussing, Mark, internally at the admin or with Pam specifically, since it really would affect her, to see if it would benefit the district enough to do that, or what your take on that would be, if you know right offhand, if you've already talked about it at this point of the year?
Well, there's no question that putting a couple more subs in would ease the stress level, because not only our district, every district around can't find subs, and that's the biggest stressor. People aren't getting their prep times. They have to do their work outside of school. Again, it's wearing people out, and I think it's bad, and it's bad all over. But again, you balance that against, being, the fiscal part of it. Again, my suggestion was with that 5th grade, let's put that person into a sub role also. So, we gotta kind of weigh out, is it worth taking these classes apart? Or is it, is the stress of no subs greater? You're not broke. I mean, you can do it, but I'd be very careful on, which way you go.
And I understand that the numbers in those primary grades are low, but when you're looking at early literacy skills, teaching reading, and those early math skills, I would be very hesitant to make the move toward a larger class size at this time in the year. I'm not sure that the relief of having true subs would outweigh the cost.
I agree. Thanks, Lori. I think that was, I agree with what you just said. I think I need some more information provided to me before I can make a decision on this.
Yeah, and if you look at this time of the year, by the time we got somebody in there from the county, it'd be a half-year deal, so, roughly $100,000 for 2 subs. So you're looking at, half the impact, really.
I feel really strongly that I would not want to move any primary classrooms in the middle of the year. I think that's not what's best for our students, and that's our youngest age, where that literacy piece, Lori, I think is so huge, and we just approved a 5th grade to make very similar class sizes to really that. I think it went down to 21. So then to say that we're gonna take younger kids and make it larger class sizes, I think we're completely contradicting ourselves. And I think it's one thing, I think, for 5th graders to transition, to get a new teacher and to get new friends in their classroom, but I look at 1st graders and 3rd graders halfway through the year to say, oh, sorry, you're gonna go to a different teacher, and then a teacher that is highly qualified to teach a classroom then, to be a float sub. I feel very strongly against it. I understand the money part for a sub. I mean, I completely get that, and I think it's a huge problem. I don't want to discard that, but I think we need to get more creative than affecting those kids.
Lacey, what do you think of the full-time subs?
I think the money's hard, but I think you're gonna get more subs because you can offer benefits. Because by getting subs, you're not getting you're coming in every day. Or can we make something with some of those subs where they could get, a certain amount a day and get more benefits? I don't know, but pulling somebody that's committed to a position for a year, halfway through the year, I think also shows them as a teacher that they're not appreciated when we say, oh, we're gonna just move you to something else.
And we talked about morale, that would be huge.
But then looking at the 5th grade position, how long did it take to fill it? I mean, would it even be possible to fill full-time sub positions?
Well, it was interesting because I got the applicant who I ended up selecting, and then I had 3 more people apply. And some of them had a short-term sub license, which they could utilize in a permanent sub role. Because the kicker with the short-term sub license is you can't be in the same role for 45 days consecutively. So if they're in like a 1st grade classroom or the sophomore classroom in the middle school, they're bouncing around, it's short-term. So you can utilize that kind of license. Those were the kinds of applicants I was getting until I got someone that had the ability to be fully licensed. So there are people out there, but.
I mean, I think looking at those small class sizes, Sheree, I think like, okay, yeah, we could, but I just don't think it's something to do halfway through the year. And I think really, I mean, those class sizes, if we're saying we want 21, I go back to if we say it's okay to have 21 in 5th grade, but then not have a higher number in 1st grade.
I think
It's so much more important in those lower grades than it is even in the upper grades.
we would have 21 in
Yeah, right,
First grade.
divided it out, it would be between, some of them would have 21, some would have 22.
Which is still really low.
In
I mean,
grade
I think it would be okay at
I
a
think-
point to do that, but not halfway through the year.
Right, so they like bring it back at the beginning, I mean, and that was kind of my point too, is that if we're doing this stuff, if next year we're not getting, if our budget really is where it is, we're gonna have to make that call
At the beginning of
at the beginning of next year, at the end of when we know where actually we're gonna be, and that's why I was hoping that maybe some feedback on what the case is gonna be for next year.
Well, and I like that you brought up the word creative, because that's what I'm thinking
Yeah.
of. That's why I wanted to have this discussion, because I am very concerned about the stress level with our teachers and staff and administrators and nurses and everybody in our district. And so I'm just trying to sort of try to be creative, and I'm open to any suggestions, but I'm hearing that teachers aren't getting their prep time, they're not getting their lunch. That concerns me because I'm worried for them and their mental health and just retaining them. And so I like that you use the word creative, because I'm open to discussions on that.
So Mark, what happened at your CISA meeting with the other superintendents? Was there a discussion, because I was at the CISA Board of Control meeting a week or so ago, and we had this discussion there. Was there a discussion about superintendents contacting DPI? What we heard a lot last year was that what helped our staff was having those extra work days. Was there a discussion of that at your CISA meeting?
Well, we just had, we talked a bit about that, but more so with our WASDA meeting last week, which is a state meeting. They're not providing any variances for instructional minutes. So it's whatever we decide to do, just like what we did here today and tomorrow at the middle school and high school. If we can provide virtual opportunities, we're okay. But, last year we were given a variance, to, on instructional minutes, so that didn't have to weigh into it. So, but right now, the DPI is not giving any variances.
Yeah,
like they did last year.
I understand DPI isn't giving any right now, but was there a discussion at the superintendent's level to request it?
Oh, yeah, that's, I've had Jerry was on with them last week, and it's just not going anywhere. It's been suggested and requested, but they're not giving anything. So if we wanted to, go back to something like that, we'd have to look at how we'd have to structure it so we can count it as instructional minutes now. Because it would look different than it did last year. Because last year we weren't concerned with instructional minutes. But, if that's something you want to look at, nobody's doing that yet in the MBC or even in CISA that I know But again, if you're talking about being creative, you wanna do something different, it's a possibility. You know, because this year, you know, why would we have a snow day? We'd go virtual on it. So again, we just have to, narrow down some more work, make sure, all of our i's are dotted and t's are crossed. And we had some missteps with, the last week we were out with some of the platforms that we were using. Hopefully we got that all straightened away. So if that's something you want to look at, I can nail that down and say, here's exactly how we have to do it, and we get by with it, from the state. But to answer your question, Lori, I don't know of anyone that's doing that right now.
Well,
Bruce,
maybe
you had-
that's
oh, sorry.
something that should come up at our laws at the state convention. Maybe school board members should start contacting DPI.
Bruce, you had mentioned the ESSER funds. Is that a possibility to use the ESSER funds for getting subs, long-term subs or the sub positions for the year?
I don't know how much we're gonna get extra next year. I think that's
Because
just
it
for
would
this
just be
year.
a this year.
This is what we're already getting this year, which
It's
I think is.
just this year position anyways. We're not saying we're hiring a whole other teacher. It's just actually really like half a year by the time you hire somebody.
But and I'm not Dave, but I think the budget we approved already put our numbers right at where he figured that 700,000 into our budget, or whatever number it is, he figured that in, and then I think, don't quote me Dave, but I think we're already there, like our budget is already at
I think you're right.
the number where it's supposed to
Yeah.
be. So we're not, if we would spend this extra, we would technically go over budget, but I guess with Sarah Shannon here, I guess to put him on the spot is, we've also looked at giving a 1%, possible 1% raise with the compensation piece. So would people put off the 1% knowing that, okay, we're gonna hire 2 subs instead to help alleviate and give them more time? I mean, I've brought up my own job that if you give me help, I don't want any more money, I just need more help. And I don't know if that's real or not, the teachers, but I mean, that's the one thing, because we're already talking about different compensation pieces. And I know we have that money in our general fund, but is it worth technical raises for other people if we're giving them more help? I mean, it's just something to weigh out there.
Is that something we can just double check with Dave to run by, just to make sure?
Yeah, everything's factored into the budget this year with the, steps and lanes. But the one thing that we're holding off on is that putting a percent on the schedule, right?
Yeah.
And I'd want to revisit it with Dave to find out exactly where we're at.
Is he able to,
Well, go ahead.
how quick would we be able to find out what that cost would be for the rest of the year for 2 full-time subs? I mean, is that,
They get a daily rate of pay,
so
so
they
it's
get,
a
Well,
daily rate, Jody would know.
Again, it was half the year, I'm pretty close on $100,000, because these are almost 50 grand positions. Your BA1, then, benefits are taken and what have you, so you're at least up to 50 on a full-time for a year. So again, if you're gonna go for 2, half a year roughly, because, by the time we got someone, then it'll probably be close to the holiday break. And, who knows, we may get lucky and there may be somebody out there. There may be some kids graduating at semester time that are looking for something.
Well, and I have a hard time, Lori, I totally get what you're saying with adding, if it's at all possible to add in those extra days for teachers, because I think that mental health. But then I'm gonna go back, like, okay, then there's more days that our kids aren't in the classroom getting instruction. And I think that
Yep.
it's a scale, because, I mean, I think it's so important to give teachers those days, and I know that they've really benefited from it last year. But from the parent and child perspective, that's a lot of days, and we're talking about how much they were affected by not being in the classroom, and then we're adding more days that they're not in the classroom, you know?
I get it.
I mean, are we back to 2 teachers again from your end? 2 subs, 1 sub?
Yes, I mean, when I
Anything?
look, you know, we've had 83 unfilled positions this year. And then we've had, I pulled this just so you had the data. And then we have had,
83 unfilled sub days?
yeah. It's like 80 over the course from September until now.
You have?
No, this is district-wide.
District-wide, okay.
District-wide, 83. But then we've had some filled or moved to no sub needed using our district sub or regular staff. A total of 189 of those, so where we've got, and that's maybe like, you're gonna teach this block, or you're gonna teach these 2 mods, or you're gonna teach, you know, we're gonna blow up your classroom, or we're gonna throw our district sub in there. So that's just, I mean, it's not like finite, super specific data, but just to kind of give you an overall picture of our teachers are going into classrooms on their prep on a regular basis.
We've had
Not atypical right now. It is more the norm than it is the exception right now.
We've had roughly 55 days so far, something like that.
We just finished try 1, so just about, yeah, between 55 and 60 days.
So
Yeah.
we're there.
So, that's just information.
You,
But yeah, I mean,
that basically says 2 people would cover that.
when we're texting going, can I have our district sub from this time to this time, and then could you send her my way? I mean, just to try to, we're trying to work together as much as possible, and when then you have a teacher that goes down for an extended period of time, who do we want in that spot? Somebody who knows us, right? So we want to put our district person in there. So there's just the ripple effect of that piece, so.
Could we look at one? An additional one
I
at
was
least? I mean,
actually
we're talking about
thinking at the
2, can we
very
look
least.
at
At the very
one?
least.
And then we've also brought up, I thought it was brought up at the last meeting, if teachers are giving up their prep, you know, they're getting compensated at a very low, could we up that to that time that they are filling in and doing a double, you know, whether it be an hour? Because that's gonna be a lot less money than if you hire a full-time employee.
Was that a question or a comment?
Maybe both.
You know, in our conversation a couple of weeks ago, you know, I made the comment several times that I would like to get that paid to a point where people are jumping up and down about doing it. You know, I don't know what that number is, and that's when we got into a conversation about hiring Victoria to look at, you know, the incentives that other places are giving right now, but that's another part of the compensation piece. You know, Lacey, you made the comment about time on task, and I tell you, that's the thing that scares me the most when I start looking at student achievement and what have you, and I look where kids are going, to take them out of the classroom, you know, more is just gonna keep those trend lines going where they're at. Last year was disastrous for us, but, you know, you look at what we're up against. And my own personal feeling is the more you take them out of a structured classroom environment, this is what we're getting. That's my opinion.
But we're also looking at with subs too. I know it costs money to get these subs, and I know it is that, but then you're putting teachers in that aren't, maybe that's not their area, and then are they really getting that best quality education when they're having mixed subs in their class every single day? Not every single day, but those days that teachers are out. I mean,
All right, I don't think we're gonna solve this problem tonight.
Do we want to make a motion to post for one of them?
You know, we can put it out there to see what we can find. We don't have to hire, but let us post and see what we can get.
Do I need to make a
And then
motion
come
for
back
that?
in the meantime with the exact numbers.
I'll make a motion to post for full-time subs. And then we'll just see how many applicants we have
How many?
until filled.
But I mean, one position or,
Let's see how many applicants we have.
okay, so we're.
Because we're not approving who we're getting, but I mean, let's just see if let's see what the next month looks like. That number might get even worse with how many people we have here. Let's just post and see what kind of applicants. I'm just saying post for the positions.
Okay, so Bruce has made a motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
second.
Oh, sorry, Matt. Matt can second.
All right, Matt has seconded, is there further discussion on this item? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries to post for a full-time substitute in the building position. The next item on the agenda is the policy updates. We went through these at the work session. Tasia and I went through them again today and made a few corrections, but everything is accurate at this time. Would somebody like to make a motion to approve the policy updates?
I make a motion to approve 1 through 15.
Thank you,
Policy
Marge. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Roxanne. Does anybody have any questions or comments about any of these policies? Matt, did you have anything?
Nope.
All right, all in favor?
I,
Any
Aye.
opposed? Motion carries then. The next item on the agenda is the world language trip proposal that Ms. Donnelly's Spanish teachers Liz and Jen brought. We saw a wonderful PowerPoint presentation. Shannon, was there anything you wanted to add?
I don't think so.
All right. Did anybody want to make a motion then?
I'll
make a motion.
Yeah, I would just like to comment, it was a fantastic presentation, and I'm really excited about it, so.
All right, Matt, go ahead and make a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve Section 5 learner connectedness and recommend the school board approve the world language trip as presented as 5A1.
All right, and is there a second?
I will second.
Thank you, Cherie. Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
I,
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
just keep us updated, I guess.
We want
What
pictures.
happens, how many students and.
It's, I think, over a year away.
Right, I just, yeah, I mean, but I think they had to sign up this year to get moved next year.
All right, so consent agenda. Would anybody like to make a motion here?
We'll make a motion to approve 6A, 1 and 2, B1, C1, D1.
Is there a second?
I second that.
Thank you, Lacey. Any questions or comments on any of these items? Matt? Any?
No questions?
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. General information, we have a work session on the 6th, regular session on the 20th. Once around the table, Cherie, would you like to begin today?
Sure, I would love to. I just want to reach out to our community. Our district in full has been under a lot of stress over the last year and a half, and I would just really encourage parents to connect with teachers and administration and write a little thank you, have your kids write a little thank you, be active on social media with positive things. There's so many awesome, amazing things happening in our district. And unfortunately, sometimes it's the negative that gets all the attention, and that can be incredibly draining for teachers to be, or administration, anyone to have in front of them, especially on social media. So I've reached out to a few families. I would encourage, if there's somebody in the community or at each grade level or school that would want to spearhead some activities or writing thank you cards to the teachers in the lobby once a week, or anything you can do. These teachers are under a lot of stress. They're with our kids a lot of times more than we are. And we need to share a lot of love with them. So please, anything you can do, let's get together and show them how much we appreciate them.
And are thankful for them?
Oh,
Thankful.
in a million ways.
Bruce?
The December 20th, which I won't be at that board meeting, but December 20th, we have our first listening session. So if anyone's watching, I don't know who's going to be here before the meeting. So we'll have 2 board members in here at 5, right? 5 o'clock?
Yes, 5 o'clock.
just for people to come in and ask questions if they don't want to ask public comment, but just feel free to come in. An hour before that, I think it's every regular meeting is what it looked like going forward. So December 20th, we'll have board members here, 2 of them, 2 or 3 for the meeting. And then I guess on the once around, are we gonna get any feedback from maybe the middle or the elementary school on the virtual week? Just some lessons learned type things going forward. You know, we didn't do it at all last year. I know they did a survey, they asked, not survey, but they asked parents what they thought, what teachers thought after kind of having to do it more, maybe more structured than they did, you know, in last year when just a whole week or a whole school or classroom would be home when the whole school was gone. I guess just maybe some feedback from Pam, maybe what we got, what they heard.
On how that week went
Yeah, how that went.
and
Great idea.
what went well and maybe what they do
Changes for next
differently.
time. Yep. That's it.
Okay. I am good. Marge? Nothing. Okay. Lacey? Oh, wait a minute, Matt? Sorry. I'll come back.
Yeah, I got a couple things. I agree, I like Bruce's request about the lessons learned from elementary school kind of an after action. Maybe one of the upcoming meetings, you could have Pam come in and just kind of give us some feedback on how that went and if there's anything we need to do better. The next one is I would ask that maybe the business office fill us in. So in regards to Tasia's question about assistance for the cheer coach, if I'd like to know from the business office, is that a position that should be filled? Should it not? Where does it fit with other districts? And if we're lacking, then I think that we should address it. And my last one was, let's say I had one more thing, but I lost my train of thought, but my last one was, a few weeks back when we met, we talked about meeting as a board, maybe 30 minutes prior to some meetings to do some board development, setting goals, expectations. I would urge us to maybe put that on the calendar to meet maybe 30 minutes prior to a meeting once a month. I know we don't want to add another night, but I think that we need to address our goals and expectations as a board. So I urge us to do that.
All right. Thank you, Matt. Lacey?
Wow, everybody did good so far. I'm gonna echo everything that they said. And I wanna thank Ryan. So, I've heard so many great things from Dr. Rezick and principals and staff about how wonderful you've been. This is a challenging time and I had to have contact with you and I just thank you for all your work. You're doing amazing.
Thanks, Ryan.
Okay, well, it's my turn. I am letting you all know that I resigned from the board today. I wanted to stay, okay, gotta take a deep breath. I wanted to stay on until April, but I can't because it's very important to me that my position is part of the April election. So, deep breath. In order to be on the April election, on the ballot in April, I have to resign effective immediately because if I were to stay on, then you would have to appoint somebody for my last year of service. And to be completely honest, I was not going to run for a third term. So in April 20 of 23, my seat would have been available anyway. So I'm sorry to put you all in the position of having to appoint somebody from effective 11 o'clock tonight until the election in April. Some of you know that I take care of my mom on hospice, and she has taken a turn, and I'm gonna take care of her. Okay. Anyway, and I'm gonna devote my time to her and my family and the time that she has left. But can I just say what I hope for this board? I hope that this board continues with respect and positive relationships with administration, teachers, staff, and students. I think so much of you guys. Okay, I didn't think I'd get emotional about this, but when I talk about my mom, I get emotional. Okay. I do believe that you're in good hands with this board and that there's passion for the school board and that there is likely going to be a wonderful replacement for me. I am going to still stay very involved with topics that I'm passionate about. So please, Shannon, Sarah, Pam, if you're listening, Ryan, Mark, if there is anything I can do to help you as a parent and a volunteer, please don't hesitate to call on me. I will have time for that. I just can't be in such a official capacity going forward. So I have great respect for you, Shannon, Sarah, Pam, Ryan, Mark. And I know I'm missing people, but this whole district, you guys educated my son, you're educating my daughter. I have so much faith in you guys, and I am gonna be here for you, and we'll come to meetings probably and make some public comments and so forth. Tasia, I appreciated your message in the beginning of this meeting. I witnessed your cheer team at the basketball game, the girls' basketball game last week. I couldn't believe how many girls are out for cheer. They did a phenomenal job. They are a really awesome group of girls. And so I do hope that the board really does consider your request for more support in the coaching realm. And let's remember that the cheer team took second in the region recently. And we can just look at your recent history to know that it's a very extremely valuable program. And then I would hope that the board would consider to have discussions about when you are having compensation discussions, to consider the gap model, the people that are in the gap, the teachers in the gap. If you don't know enough about it to make good decisions, please look into it and educate yourself on the gap model. We have some really awesome teachers that are in that group, and I would hope that they would still get consideration to bring their compensation up to where it needs to be. And then I know this is random, but I really hope that the Prairie Project goes through, and I'm hoping that I can help volunteer with that project. I think it's really cool, and I will reach out directly to the teacher who does that. And I did sign up for listening sessions that obviously I won't be at. I just wanted to let you guys know that. But anyway, I'm very sorry that this is gonna cause more work for some of you and disappointment. I know I'm disappointing a lot of people, but know that I'm still gonna be here to help you guys in any way I can. Thank you, that's it. That was a really long once around, sorry.
Thank you, Roxanne, for your dedication to the board and for the years of service that you've given the district.
And please remember, I really would have stuck around till April if I could have, but it's very important to me that this goes on the ballot. So I talked to WASB and this is what I had to do.
All right. I will make a motion then to adjourn into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 19.85 paren 1 paren C, to consider the employment, compensation, or performance evaluation of the district administrator. Is there a second?
A second.
Thank you, Bruce. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so at 7:28, we are moving into closed session. Thank you.